Hey folks, how the hell are ya? My name is Kaylin.
And I'm the bane of my father's existence.
Ay.
And you're listening to Crime or Reason. What's up, everybody?
How is life?
It's hot.
It is hot. That's hot.
We hope everybody's doing fantastic today.
Fantabulous.
We are excited for this episode. Do you know why?
Why?
Because we're both telling a story.
We love to see it.
We both actually have a case each, which is going to be a lot of fun. We are doing a new little segment, if you will.
It's not a lot of fun.
Because we have 75 of them in our few short episodes. But essentially, we're going to be talking about killer nurses.
Killer nurses.
We thought that it would be really, really cool to do a segment where we talk about the people that we, install all of our fear and faith into to, keep us safe and alive and healthy, and how, just like every other field of work and all other walks of life, there are some psychopaths out there.
Yes.
So this should be fun.
New fear unlocked.
Yeah, which it's just so crazy because a lot of the times, they try to be tricky, but it is easier for them to be sneaky with it because but I know that in my case, the bad guy got caught.
Mine also got caught.
So, we don't really know of many nurses' cases where they don't get caught.
Correct.
So.
Because it's pretty obvious that if you're laying in a hospital bed and a nurse is taking care of you and you die, fingers pointed towards the nurse.
Especially if it's happening to more than one
patient,
which is, in my case, I'm sure it's in yours too.
Yes.
A wild time.
Would you like to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Sure, I'll go first.
All right.
So, we are going to be talking about the case of Benjamin Geen. Which I was like, Geen?
Any correlation to Ed Gein?
No. None at all. But it's really crazy because he actually has a nickname of the last name of another killer. He gets a nickname. We'll go into it.
Okay.
So Benjamin Geen was born in 1980 to Eric and Mike Geen. He served in the military at one point. He was really big into the action. He liked the fighting and the combat, it was stuff that he was really, really into. People said that he was always, looking for the action. Action was something that he was really into. He liked things to be exciting. A thrill seeker, if you will.
A thrill seeker.
Yes, so we have another thrill kill here, if you will.
Oh, man.
He worked at Horton General Hospital in Banbury, Oxfordshire. He just loved to be where the action was. Everybody was he wanted to always be in the action. He was always picking up shifts, working as much as he can. He worked in their accident and trauma center, which I'm assuming is an ER, is what it sounds like.
And trauma centers are even there's different levels of trauma centers.
Right.
So it may have even been just a specifically for trauma kind of thing, maybe.
Right. Essentially, he was just always where everything exciting was, and he tried to get his hands on with basically as many patients as he could. It was just something that he was always interested in and gearing toward, especially the more traumatic ones. They said that he had a bad habit of ignoring instructions, and he had been warned on several occasions about turning up in the emergency department without authority, and that he needed to stay put where he was because he was put with the minor injuries, that's where he was posted up at.
Oh, so he was trying to get authorized for higher traumas rather than the
he would just find his way over there.
Wow.
A little
pushy.
Yeah, you got a minor injury. Well, I'm gonna go see what's going on down here.
Yeah.
So that was just everything that he was into. And actually, we end up learning that he's got hero syndrome, which we'll get into because it's something that sometimes is prevalent in the medical field.
Yep.
So essentially everybody, going about their job and whatnot, and there ended up being, over the course of a couple months, like a lot of patients who were coming in for like minor stuff, and then shit would kind of hit the fan.
Right.
And it was all the same, like major event that would happen. They would go into respiratory arrest, which not everybody's just going into respiratory arrest.
Right.
Like there were people coming in with like for stitches and then going into respiratory arrest.
Oh, wow.
And who was always around? Benjamin.
Mr. Geen.
Yeah, Mr. Geen. He was always around when it would happen, and so all of these intense cases where people were going into respiratory arrest, he was always at the hospital. Like when these were happening, it didn't take long before people started pointing fingers and
started talking.
Yeah, they were talking like not only about each other, but a lot of people gravitated toward the idea that it was Ben.
Yeah.
And
talk travels quick in a hospital.
Yeah. Ben would also, too, always know exactly how to resuscitate him. It's like he always knew what was going on. And so it was giving, that's kind of where this hero...
The hero syndrome.
...comes in because...
I saved them.
Yeah, because he was... People were starting to suspect that he was doing something to the patients just so that he can resuscitate them. And they don't know if it was for the thrill of, like, life or death, because he was really into, like, thrill-seeking, or if it was for, like, the praise, like he was wanting the praise from it. So between December 2003 and December 2004, it ended up being 18 patients total that were going to the emergency department that ended up somehow suffering from respiratory arrest.
18?
18, yes. Now, a lot of these would end up living, but we do get to a situation where 2 of the patients had actually died in the same month, in January of 2004. David Onley, who was age 75, and Anthony Bateman, who was age 65, both ended up passing. It was actually pretty crazy because David had been admitted into the emergency department with complications of his diabetes and some like heart issues. So,
which doesn't correlate at all whatsoever with respiratory arrest.
Right. And when this kind of thing happens, my grandfather's diabetic, so when that happens, like, it's all, pretty much the same thing. They go in, he ends up getting an insulin trip. And so that they can kind of, counteract and make everything better. And they actually said that he got better. Then it said that Benjamin Geen actually ended up coming in and taking over as the nurse, because it was like overnight, so he ended up taking over for the nurse. Less than an hour later, David had suffered from respiratory arrest and was struggling to breathe and ended up dying because of it.
Wow. So he was doing better, and then as soon as Geen came in, he... Awful.
So it actually came out that another patient that Geen had treated ended up having the drug midazolam in his system, which is essentially benzo, so it's a sedative. With sedatives and muscle relaxer, stuff of that nature, we learned that it slows down your respiratory.
It's what they use to put you to sleep.
Right,
yeah. It's what they use to shut down your system so that you can, have surgery.
Right, and so in smaller doses, it's meant to, kind of slow everything down. A lot of stuff does that with between, muscle relaxers or, sedatives. It kind of slows down everything. It really calms down the body. Although sometimes it's given just to, calm patients.
Yeah.
But given in higher doses, it can shut down the it can, slow down the respiratory system too much. And so then it ends up stopping everything.
You end up going into respiratory arrest.
And then past that, another patient that was treated by Geen ended up coming in because they had some sort of stomach issues. They were really having some issues. It turned out that not only did they have the midazolam in their system, but they also had a muscle relaxant called vecuronium.
Oh.
And again, that's where that muscle relaxer comes in. So this person had not only a sedative, which is going to slow down your respiratory system, but also a muscle relaxer, which also slows down your respiratory system.
God.
So we're double dosing here. And none of these were found as prescriptions for these people. Like, they weren't prescribed these things. It wasn't on their charts for them to, have been having these things administered on them. And we actually learned that a couple patients who ended up, like, coming out of this and going into, like, coma-like states. There was one patient who came in and was in a lot of pain, and the doctor had left, and Geen had come in and ended up saying, I see that you have, like, morphine on your chart. And this was a nurse who used to work at that hospital. She was retired. She came in, and he was like, I see that there's some morphine on your chart for pain. Like, I could help you administer that. And she said that the next thing that happens is Geen was like, I'm going to just flush your drip and get you set. And she said that's the last thing that she remembers because she just went completely unconscious.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So he was just, like, coming in saying, hey, I'm here to help. I'm going to give you this and flush your IV and make sure you're good and taken care of. And then all of a sudden they were out.
Yes, correct.
Can we just talk for a second about how stupid it is to go into someone's room, because they're going to do autopsies on these people and see that they had these drugs in their system.
Which none of these people had died. He wasn't expecting any of them to die until the two died, because he was saving them. Yes. He liked the thrill of, like, people dying and him being like, let me fix you.
Right.
What's crazy is, like, they even had a patient who was, like, 22 years old, like, in super athletic shape, who came in and suffered from respiratory arrest.
That's insane.
Yeah. So, like
he had to know.
Dude, you're fucking up so bad.
So bad.
So, I don't know. It's just, it's so intense. They did have one patient who came in who had taken a ridiculous amount of, it says painkillers. So, had taken a ridiculous amount of painkillers. No specification, but I mean, they're painkillers. And drank an entire bottle of gin. He had completely stopped breathing after Geen had administered something on him that he didn't need.
Like, his psychological state could not have been, like, something was altered here. Like,
right. Very
off.
Also, too, I said something about that nurse a while ago and just said that she was in pain. I didn't tell you guys what was wrong with her. She had a dislocated shoulder.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Which also, too, a fucking dislocated shoulder.
Painful.
Could not be me. Could not be me.
Painful.
If I were to dislocate a shoulder, I'd be like, take me out.
Take me out. I'm gone.
Yeah. Because, like, it not only is incredibly painful to dislocate anything, but a shoulder, then to have it relocated.
Like, the way that
they have, like, to,
body
like,
pops
yeah.
And, gross.
Could not. Anyway, so obviously at this point, everybody's realizing, like, hey, Geen's literally always here, and every single patient who was, like, getting wrecked with,
all these medicines.
Respiratory arrests,
right.
They have all literally been under, some sort of care at some point by Geen. Because of this, his co-workers ended up calling him Ben Alit.
Ben Alit?
Yes, like Beverly Alit.
Beverly Alit?
And if you guys don't know who Beverly Alit is, she is also a nurse from England who was, like, notoriously known for being, like, a serial killer nurse.
Child.
Yeah, she killed
serial killer nurse.
Yeah, a ridiculous. Well, I mean, I wasn't a ridiculous amount. More than one is a ridiculous amount.
Any
but
more
she
than
had killed. I think it was like 4 or 6.
It was a lot.
Like infants, toddlers.
I'm pretty sure they refer to her as, like, the angel of death, or, like, even, like, most nurses who kill, they call them angels of death.
Right.
But, like,
yeah. So
she was intense.
So they ended up calling him Ben Alit, named after
Beverly
Alit. So and these nurses, they know, like, they're not stupid. They know what's going on. And they said that a lot of these nurses that he worked with ended up actually in court later testified that when somebody would go into respiratory arrest, Geen would almost look happy.
Like he was excited.
Yeah, like it would spark something in him, and then he would continue to, like, brag about himself to his coworkers and other doctors.
Brag about how big and good he was for saving somebody from respiratory arrest. Yep. It's disgusting.
Yep. So, with that being said, obviously an investigation came because they're like, people are dead now.
Yeah.
And this is not only, like, a criminal emergency, but it immediately becomes, like, a medical emergency in a way, because people at a hospital are dying, and they're like, we gotta fucking go.
Figure this out.
Right. So, cops came in, They worked incredibly close with, like, the medical staff because these are cops. These are not nurses or doctors, so they don't know all the, all the lingo and the medicines. Yeah. So they're working really close to learn as much as they possibly can. And they're going through and investigating, and they're showing that statistically, it does not make sense that this many people are dying the way that they are.
Under the care.
With him being there. Like, the statistics don't actually make sense.
Yeah.
It actually showed that a good chunk of all the patients that suffered from the respiratory arrest under Geen's care actually had that midazolam in it, or in their system. And so that was obviously...
Like his drug of choice kind of thing.
There ended up being not only, like, medical professionals that were advising in this, but up to, like, there were, like, 40 officers that were investigating this. Like, it was a big investigation. Because they were like, this is, happening here.
Right. People aren't supposed to go to the hospital and die.
Right. So, basically with, a bunch of medical experts, they were able to draw conclusions. The drugs that were being administered would all cause, like, this type of respiratory arrest. And that all of these patients had been treated by Geen. Obviously, we know. So, the investigation went quick, which I think it was like a weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were able to find a lot, do everything. With that being said, that comes back in the trial later. Because they were like, it took a weekend. So, we'll get into it. There are actually, once you draw your own conclusions on this case, it'll probably shock you. How many people are on the opposite side.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think... Okay.
I already know what side you're going to be on. So, but yeah, there are people on the opposite side that, like, on both sides that are like, this is how I feel. So, we'll get into it. So, Geen and his girlfriend had left one morning to go to work, and Geen was freaking out because he reached down into his pocket of his scrubs and found a syringe that he had taken with him, which you don't do.
Yep,
but also, he lived on the medical facility, so there was nothing that was technically, like, reprimandable about what he did, because it never left the medical facility. And so his girlfriend was like, listen, don't panic, like, you're fine, like, it happens, people do it. And I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's something like, you have
something in your hand,
morphine,
stick it in your pocket.
Yeah, that you were gonna, do for a drip, and it was close to the end of your shift, it was in your pocket, and the next thing you know, you got morphine out. So, would you like to take a guess on what was in that syringe?
The one that starts with an M.
No.
What?
The vacuronium, and it said that it was even, like, possibly, like, a lethal dose, because it's that muscle relaxer.
Well, that's crazy.
Which we know was found in one of the patients.
Right.
That had passed. He ended up going to work, and, he was just going to take his girlfriend's advice, which was just throw it in one of, like, the biohazard containers, or discard containers once you get there. But when he got there were police outside, and he was like, and he got obviously really nervous and panicky, and as you would imagine, and
I get panicky and nervous around police, so I couldn't imagine having actually done anything.
Right. So, and then upon arrival, he was arrested, and of course, he was arrested with a syringe.
Of course.
Full of a lethal dose of vacuronium. So, things look pretty damning here.
Well, yeah.
Because they are.
They very much are.
He was arrested for inflicting bodily harm to 16 patients, and then formally arrested of the murder of 2 of the patients. Now, we get into the trial, and there's a lot of stuff that is against him. They talk about how he used different relaxants and insulins and sedatives to cause respiratory arrest and essentially failure in 2 of the patients to carry out his hero syndrome. The prosecution and the defense both agreed that he was around when everything happened, like when all these people, like,
I'm sure there's, like, security footage.
Yeah, and everybody agreed to that. And, of course, like, the nurses were testifying, like, how he acted, how he had almost seemed, like, happy when it would happen. However, they actually used for defense, and Geen said himself, I was always at the hospital. Of course these deaths were going to happen. Which, technically, yeah, if you're working that many cases, or that many shifts, you're probably going to be there for a lot of them.
Yeah, right. But
he was also
in the room.
Yeah, or at least had treated in some sort of way. Mm-hmm. And one of the nurses even talked about the night nurse that had, with the first patient, that had said that he had, improved with the diabetes.
Yeah.
And then Geen got him and he died, like, an hour later. So, even testified, like, he was totally fine. Like, he had made improvements by the time that I got him.
Completely fine, and then all of a sudden, he went in and he was...
Right.
Going into respiratory arrest.
Now, the defense did say that there wasn't enough time to do a full-scale investigation because it only took place over a weekend. Was there not enough time to do a full-scale investigation, or was he just so sloppy that it was easy to fucking figure it out?
Right, like he was, like I said in the beginning, he was stupid.
Right. And you actually even learn that at some point, like when he was being interrogated, when Geen was being interrogated by police, he was trying to like throw them off and like really just like diminish their knowledge by using a bunch of like medical terms.
What an asshole.
But they had just done an entire investigation and were working closely with the whole medical staff and the medical experts, so they knew everything that he was trying to do. So...
He's an idiot.
Yeah. So
an asshole and an idiot.
Correct. So, Dr. Graham Hill, who was a criminologist and a detective, did conclude that Geen had hero syndrome. And he wanted to come in and, be the hero, be the one that fixed everything.
Save people.
Save people, yeah. So on May 9th, 2006, he was 25 years old then. Yeah, he was young.
I didn't realize he was that young.
Yeah, he was born in 1980.
25.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So on May 9th, I think I said 6. No, I said 9. On May 9th, 2006, he was given 17 life sentences.
17 life sentences.
But with the recommendation that he spend at least 30 in prison before being able to be considered for parole.
So he can be considered for parole in 2036.
Yeah. Yep. He obviously maintained his innocence and said that he would be appealing this. But years later, he ended up firing his legal team, got a whole new legal team, and started an appeals process. He did a couple different appeals. During this time of the failed appeals, they were saying that, quote unquote, that this was a major miscarriage of justice. Mark MacDonald, who was the founder of the London Innocence Project, had even come behind to back and defend Geen, saying that he thought that he was wrongfully convicted because, if you remember Dr. Death, do you know anything about that?
Dr. Death?
Yeah.
No.
So, also... Killer Doctor. This was coming off the tailcoats of that. The defense described it as a witch hunt, and that he was wrongfully tried because he was under a microscope because of everything that had just happened.
But
there was a lot of evidence.
There's a lot of evidence.
But they kept saying that it was circumstantial evidence, which technically it is, but you can have an outstanding amount of circumstantial evidence that backs up enough for a conviction.
I don't know. That's hard.
Yeah.
Because I guess it is all circumstantial.
Yeah, every bit of it. There's no solid proof that he did any of it.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Because you also gotta think they gotta respect patient confidentiality too. So
yep. And so that means if a patient did not testify, then they couldn't even pull that into court because of the confidentiality.
Right.
It would have to come from the mouth. Yeah.
Medical ethics was one of my least favorite classes because it was so trying. And all the arguments we had to make was impossible. Sorry, I just thought of medical ethics because of patient confidentiality and how they have to respect if a person's not wanting to be talked about in court.
Right.
But if their bodily harm comes to them, it's such a gray area.
It's good that we have things like HIPAA and Casper, but it does make legal, it does cause legal hurdles, but
right.
I mean, like,
right.
you know, it all makes sense. So it's just one of those things where it kind of goes back and forth, you know, you can't really help it, and we need all of it. So, he was denied in both of his appeals, so he is still currently in jail. 2036, he could potentially be out for parole, which is weird. I don't really know how you get 17 life sentences and then you can be considered for parole in 30 years. But also, this is not here, so
right,
we don't know how law works. You know,
right.
It's something that there was even a series of Nurses Who Kill, which focused. One of the episodes focused on his crime.
Well, the thing is, for me, like, I 100% think he did it because he, one, had that specific medication in his pocket whenever he was arrested.
Yep.
Two, the patients who, like the one who was recovering, or the ones who died, they had those medications that were not prescribed to them in their systems.
Right.
So how does it make any sense
Correct.
if those medications were in their systems for him to not be guilty?
And there were people who were able to...
Who else would have put that in there?
There were people who were able to come out of consciousness, like that one nurse that went in for the dislocated shoulder, who was able to be like, I remember what happened, you know, like
up until he pushed whatever into my IV that he pushed into my IV.
And it was a nurse, like, she was a retired nurse, she knew her shit.
Right.
You know, so, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the jury was unanimous about it all.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, take that as you will, make your own assumption on whether you think that Geen did it, whether you think that Geen didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the circumstantial evidence was enough for a rightful or rightfully enough for a conviction?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you think that because it's circumstantial evidence that it should have stayed that way? It's one of those things where, like, you can be convicted on circumstantial evidence, but it's got to be like
some strong
evidence. And I'm not gonna lie, looking at it, I don't know if I think that it was enough circumstance. I think he did it, but
right,
I just don't know if
evidence.
I don't know. I personally just don't know if I believe that the circumstantial evidence was enough. However, a jury of his peers all, you know, unanimously were like, it was him.
Right.
So, for me, I think that he did it. I think that he quite literally suffered from hero syndrome, and this is what happened. Right. For me, it's very, like, you know, open and shut for what I think happened, but also, dude, that circumstantial evidence. I mean, it really
it's hard to hold up in court, for sure.
So, but I mean, it did, and a lot of people really do, you know. We don't know what it was like over there. We don't know what it was like in that time with everything coming off the tailcoats of Dr. Death. Mm-hmm. So, it very well could have been...
I do know Dr. Death.
Yeah,
I remember now. I've listened to a couple of different podcasts about it. So, yep, I remember now.
So, and it was coming right off the tailcoats of
Right. They were saying that they were looking for this type of situation.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where one of these days we could find out. Maybe like somebody ups and confesses and was like, I can't do it anymore. And then we find out this whole time that Benjamin Geen was like
jailed wrongfully.
Yeah, it was not.
That would be something else.
That would be wild. But that's kind of what you do. You know, like when you convict somebody on like a mound of circumstantial evidence, you open yourself and that court up to the risk of
a wrongful conviction. Mm-hmm.
So it could happen. For me, looking at it, it's easy for me to tell that. But there are a lot of people on the other side, like the London Innocence Foundation. Like they really, you know, like the founder and head chairman even like backs Geen, and he's like, no, you know, and there were other people. They got a statistical analysis, and she said that while, yes, statistically it does show, you know, that there's a chance because he was there for all of them, she said under no circumstance was it a strong enough statistic
to necessarily show that he's the one who pushed the meds.
And so there's a lot of people, like, they got a bunch of different, like, specialists and analysts for that honestly, if it had showed, you know, like his appeals had worked and he had gotten out, like it would have made sense based on what they had. So we've got, you know, families of the people of the victims who were like, this is the right guy, like we're glad he's there. But also we know that in some cases, specifically the West Memphis 3, that, you know, some family members of victims can just be like, oh, they got somebody, and I'm glad that they got them, and they believe it wholeheartedly because they just want somebody to answer for the crime.
Yeah. They're just ready to get it over with, really.
So, We don't know if that's the case. It really could be one of those things that we just find out one day.
Someday.
Benjamin Geen didn't do it. But to me,
what a
he did
crazy case.
Yeah.
What a crazy case.
It's just wild. It's
very...
I said it 54 times.
What is the word I'm looking for? Controversial.
Yeah.
It's very controversial. There we go.
And then just mentally taxing, even trying to figure it out, because, like,
brain.
you know, you don't want to sit here and hate somebody who didn't do it, but also fuck the person who did it.
Right,
you know?
right.
So,
it's awful.
I know I've said it 55 times, but I mean, just with cases with the circumstantial evidence, like, it's so mind-boggling. So,
well, I have a case where there is not circumstantial evidence. There is plain as day. Here it is evidence. So I have one that is very non-controversial. It's very apparent who did it. William George Davis was 37, and he was a well-liked cardiovascular ICU nurse at Christ Trinity Mother Frances Hospital in Tyler, Texas.
That's my sister's name.
Yeah. It's also a mouthful.
Oh, my sister's name is not Christ Trinity Mother Frances Hospital. My sister's name is Tyler.
Tyler, yes.
With an O instead of an E.
So this hospital is about 100 miles east of Dallas, and the year is 2017 to 2018 area. So while Davis was working at the hospital, he acquired a total of 5 victims, from what I could find, 4 of which he had murdered. These 4 victims who were murdered were John Lafferty, aged 74, Ronald Clark, aged 68, Christopher Greenaway, aged 47, and Joseph Kalina, aged 58. The most that I could find was about Christopher Greenaway's case, but all the other cases are very similar to what happened in his. So I'm kind of going to tell more about Christopher Greenaway, but I'm presuming that all the others were kind of more correlated with it. So, again, the hospital was a cardiovascular hospital. The men had just had open heart surgeries, and they were all in recovery in the ICU. These patients were recovering, and they had few complications until after Davis was seen going into and quickly coming out of their rooms. So in an interview, Davis said he went into one of the patient's room because the IV pump was beeping. That same interview, he said that the same patient was saying his IV was bothering him, so he went in and flushed it for him. But what had really happened was that Will Davis had gone into these rooms and injected air into the IVs of the patients.
That will kill you. Period.
Yep. This was determined because each of the patients had a CT scan done after their health started deteriorating, which happened after Davis went into the room. CT results showed that air was found in their brain. This is called an air embolism. I have a quote here from Dr. Kenneth Layton. I believe it was Dr. Kenneth Layton, but they had the names blurred out. And then I found later on in like different articles that Layton was the one who was like the radiologist.
Right, yeah.
Doctor, what are they called?
Radiologist.
Yeah. So Dr. Layton was the one who was the radiologist.
You said the radiologist? What do you call him?
Shut up.
The radiologist?
Okay, so anyway, here's the quote from Dr. Layton. He said, "The presence of an air embolus in the brain indicates a substantial amount of air entering the arterial circulation from an external source. Such events are possible in cases of severe trauma in which an artery has become damaged and is exposed to air, in cases of decompression sickness as seen in divers, or in cases of introduction of a bolus of air through an arterial catheter."
I love the decompression stuff that happens with divers.
It's insane.
I hate water, but it's so interesting to me.
Insane.
Yeah.
In the quote, he said, "Had the source of the air embolism been venous, then the area affected would have been the pulmonary vasculature, not cerebral. In light of the findings that a number of patients suffered very similar injuries in the same hospital ward over a period of approximately 7 months, and that some of those patients have evidence of manipulation of their arterial line immediately preceding their own acute cerebral events, the logical conclusion is that the underlying cause of the events is the deliberate introduction of an air embolus into the patient's arterial lines. In view of these findings, the cause of death of Christopher Greenaway is cerebral ischemia due to an induced air embolus. The manner of death is homicide."
I mean, yeah. I would agree.
like I said, most of the court transcripts I found were about Christopher Greenaway, but I'm presuming that each of the other victims died in pretty well the same manner.
Yeah, similar ways.
There's also a video that they've shown in court of Davis walking into the room of one of the patients and around a minute later walking out. Within the next few minutes, chaos ensues and many nurses rush into the room to assist in treating the patient, while Davis sits at a computer and watches the monitors of the patient in an active, critical situation. He sits there and watches.
He's admiring his work.
Exactly. So we don't have a hero situation here. We have an actual person who just wants to watch.
Moida.
He wants to watch his creation.
I'm just trying to kill people. It's gross. I hate it. And, like, how do you get into a profession like this? I feel like getting into a profession like a doctor or a nurse, like, going through all that just so you can murder people, I feel like it'd be easier to just murder people without the education.
Without the education.
What makes it even more hurtful is just, these people go in trusting these people with their heart. I trust most
He's
nurses.
in an ICU.
Right.
Open heart surgery. You come out and you're like, man, these people got me.
Right.
Davis made a call to his wife from his jail cell where he said that he was trying to, in these murders, he was trying to prolong the stay of the patients in the ICU so that he could work more overtime for more money. However, the people he worked with literally said, there was plenty of overtime to be had, plenty of money to be made. I don't know why he did it. There was obviously overtime that he could have gotten without doing this. So I think he just enjoyed killing people.
No, that's exactly what it sounds like. Hate this guy. So he killed 4 people total, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Now, I wanted to mention, because there was another victim, the 5th victim, was a woman. Her name is Pamela Henderson. And
she was a fighter.
Yeah, she was a fighter. But she was also in the ICU recovering from a heart surgery when Davis was her caretaker. Like, he specifically was the caretaker of this one. Some of them, he was not the caretaker. So the other nurses don't know why he went into their rooms, but other than to push air into their IVs. This woman was recovering from the heart surgery, and he introduced air into her IV, which was enough to cause her to have a stroke, which she never actually fully recovered from. She can still barely walk.
Right. Strokes are rough.
Now, after the deaths in 2018, Davis was fired. He was tried in October of 2021, and he was convicted of 4 capital murders. He was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for Pamela Henderson, and he actually received the death penalty, and he's in custody at the Smith County Jail with an $8.75 million bond.
Not that both of your cases are made it to Covey.
Yes.
Your past 3 cases have made it to Covey.
Yep. It's crazy.
I don't know. It's icky.
It's icky. It's an icky feeling to
Here's the thing.
talk about people who are supposed to take care of you.
Talking about Ben Geen, he was at least giving them, like, sedatives and, muscle relaxers. And so these people probably didn't feel pain. But, like, air?
Yeah. And it traveled, on the CT, it traveled to their brain.
Yeah.
So there was air in their brain. Could you have, like...
It probably feels like an aneurysm.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine.
Oh, God. Oh,
and, like, these patients were recovering. They were on the mend.
Right.
So...
From already, like, horrific stuff. Like,
hard
heart
stuff.
surgeries. Yeah. Ooh, nope.
Awful.
Trust your nurses, people. However, be wary. No, we love nurses, and we're very thankful for all the work they do. A few bad apples were on the bunch, but
yep,
we appreciate you, nurses.
We appreciate
this isn't an attack
of the medical workers.
Right, this isn't an attack on you guys. We love you guys dearly. Thank you so much for everything you do. Fuck these 2 guys, though.
Yeah, they're not so great.
Yeah, they're pretty awful, but... Anyway, we are incredibly excited that you came to hang out with us for the day and get stories from both of us. We love a double episode. We don't
Thank you. Appreciate you.
We don't do them often, but we love them when we do them. So if you guys haven't seen her by now, we have merch. Go check it out.
Go get yourself a shirt.
Yes, or a pullover.
Or a pullover.
Or a sticker.
A sticker?
A sticker. She a thick sticker. So a sticker.
We just had the same thought at the same time.
And I bit my tongue twice in the process. But yeah, go check out our merch shop. You can get to that if you go to all of our social medias. They all have the link tree. The link tree link, and you can access our merch shop through there. So
that is Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. You can hit us up on our Gmail at CrimeOrReason@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you. It's been amazing having all these people reach out to us. So
yeah, we really appreciate it. We really appreciate the support, and we hope that you stay with us forever. We now have you under our wings. You will not be leaving. We have officially adopted you or kidnapped you.
Forever and ever, amen.
You are our family now.
Sorry. We're all family here.
I'm holding my arms up like I'm a fucking bat. Like I'm fucking Dracula. Like,
Dracula. I've come to suck your blood.
So stupid. It's so stupid. Anyway, well, don't suck like we do, and enjoy the rest of your day.
What did you call us last time? A garbage?
Oh,
dumpster.
We're dumpster fires.
Dumpster fire.
Like we're dumpster fires. Like I'm a dumpster fire of a person, so is Caitlin. But together we set the world ablaze.
Yes.
That's what I said, I think.
Yup.
So anyway, all right. Well, we appreciate you guys. We hope that you stay safe,
stay healthy,
and stay criminal. Good. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Or trash.